A new Illinois law protects freelance workers who create products in Illinois. The Freelance Workers Protection Act entitles workers whose work is equal to $500 in a 120-day period to a written contract. Full payment by the due date of their contract or 30 days of completion. The law does not apply to those working construction or employees.